today we're going to talk about the art of asking. And I think asking is both an art and a science. There's a lot of science about asking, and I'm going to stick some of that in, just kind of sneak it in a little bit, because some of you like statistics and information, so we'll stick some of that in. But a lot of asking for money is just kind of being comfortable, both with it and with yourself. So let's plunge into the art of asking. I always have to do these disclaimers. Yes, I have been in the nonprofit business for 40 years, but I am not an attorney. The only letters I've got after my name are CFRE, which stands for Certified Fundraising Executive. And I spend a lot of time sending people to their own professional advisors, because even though I may have a great idea about what somebody can do, I can't write a trust or a will. So, just feel quite comfortable when you get over your head to send them to somebody who actually is supposed to do that. So this is me. And I work with nonprofits across the country as a consultant. So you can read more about me if you want to. And here's where you need to get out your phone and answer the question with a word or two. Look at the QR code. If you have to stand up to do it, that's fine. A word or two about how do you feel about asking for a donation. And if the magic of the internet works, we'll have a word cloud here shortly. We'll see.
We're supposed to use one word?
Or you can, I don't care.
Okay.
Do whatever works. And I think you can put in more than one.
Give me that money.
Not awful, but uncomfy. Okay. Bratty. Oh, now is that bratty in the cool sense, or is that bratty in the spoiled child sense? Decent. All right. In progress. Okay.
Give me the money.
Worried. Depends on the reason. Okay. Good for the right ask. Like an imposter. Oh, that's interesting. Unsure how much to ask for. Okay. Greedy. Beggar. I had a dean, I swear. I worked at a university for 18 years, and I had a dean who said, I will not beg for money. I would rather clean the toilets than beg for money. And I spent many years unsuccessfully trying to convince her that having people support her program financially was not begging for money. Okay, well, it looks like we've got some interesting stuff here, and the awkward, uncomfortable, anxious, and nervous is about what I expected, which is why I had you do that, because I'm hopeful that by the time we finish here, you will at least have some ideas and strategies you can put to use, and you'll be able to feel a little bit more comfortable when you're put in that situation. So let's see what we're going to do. Okay, the word asking itself is really all about permission. And I really think the key to a successful ask is getting permission to ask. And I know that may sound crazy, but we'll talk about different ways that you get permission. You might be talking to somebody about one of your programs, for example. Maybe you're talking to somebody about the art pillar, and somebody talks about how they know this terrific artist who might be interested in helping, facilitate one of your programs. Well, in a way, they've given you permission to go back to them and reconnect. So trying to think about asking as getting permission to continue a conversation that you've already started in some way. And it's all about helping people do something good for your community. So as I said, this is the very first thing that you have to do is you have to get permission. And you may think, well, how can we do that? One of the things that I like to do, and this is something that you can do very easily, is change the little line under your email signature once a month. Maybe this month, maybe it's call me if you would like to know more about, and stick in one of your programs. Or ask me how you can give away money and get money. That's one kind of charitable technique. Or have you thought about establishing a scholarship? Or in August, this is Make a Will Month. Have you made your will yet? And I bet if you would just come up with a dozen different things that you could put under your email signature, that would give you a way to open a door with people and it doesn't have to all be about asking, it can be about your programs or whatever it is that you're engaged in. So that's a great way to get people to engage with you. If you send out any kind of form, ask me about our new program. Have you left money in your will to our organization? I mean, if somebody puts a checkbox on a form and sends it back in, they've given you permission to contact them. And this weekend, you're going to be talking to lots of different people. And if you engage with them on a topic and then you follow up, in essence, you've been given permission to contact them. And Tracy, I'm going to ask, are you going to send these slides out to people? Because I see people, okay. So you don't have to take pictures on your phone. You're going to get these slides afterwards. So that way you don't have to take copious notes unless something is really inspirational. Another thing that I like to do is do a survey of your donors. Now, I know the surveys are kind of every business you go to, every time I get a package from Amazon, would you review your, glasses case that you bought from Amazon? And it's like, how do you review a glasses case, really? But surveys are kind of a thing. So here's the key to a survey where you want to get permission to talk to somebody, is that you make it really short and you tell them up front, I've got 4 questions. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to do this. Because we all get these surveys, and I'm as guilty as everyone else, where, please take my survey, it'll take 15 minutes. And I think, maybe later. And somehow later never comes. So keep it short. And, the first question is asking them how they connect with you. And you can list the programs or the projects or whatever you're doing. And that way you've got a drop-down box and you make it really easy. And then which of our programs, would you like to know more about, or which are you not familiar with? And then they've given you some indications for that. Are there specifics you would like to know? And then how do we connect with you? Do you want to text? Do you want email? Do you want me to call you? And here's the kicker. You've got to give them something. So because otherwise you don't know who's doing the survey. So try within your county to come up with something that's an easy freebie. I mean, is there a movie theater that would give you tickets? Tracy drove me by a skating rink here. And I thought, oh, how fun. I'd probably break my leg if I got on skates now, but when I was a kid, I loved to roller skate. So, would the roller rink give you a free ticket? I mean, be creative. Maybe it's the park system, and maybe the parks are free. I don't know, because I don't live in Ohio. But come up with something, and it would be even better if as soon as they submit it, you can send them that freebie. But you have to know who's submitting it in order to get permission to talk with them. But figure out some way to do a survey, because that's such an easy way. And talk about getting permission. You will get permission. So be creative and put on your thinking caps about that one. Then you have to follow up. And this is the hard part. This is why we got all those nervous and unsure and uncomfortable things. So I'm going to try to walk you through some things that I think will make it easier for you when you do follow up. Let's talk about texting. Some people get really annoyed if you text them and they don't know who you are. In fact, I'll never forget the first time I texted my nephew. I had his phone number in my phone, and I thought, you know, this is perfectly fine. And I got back this, who is this? I didn't identify myself. I just assumed that Adam would know who I was. So if you're texting, and it's not somebody you text with ordinarily, identify yourself really close to the front end. And if you don't have, it's especially true if you don't have permission already to text them. So that's a key for texting. Now, a phone call will also work, and this is where a lot of people go, I don't really want to talk on the phone. So there are some people who will answer the phone. The silent generation, which was the people who were born before World War II, will usually answer the phone just because when they grew up, you answered the phone. So they often will. Boomers will still, when they were born between 46 and 64, boomers will usually answer the phone. But there's so much fraud going around now that even silent generation people are sometimes reluctant to answer the phone. So if you have an opportunity to prep someone for your phone call, I have the unfortunate number of a 314 area code, which is St. Louis. I've had it for 20 years. So I want to keep my number, but I live in a 928 or a 602 area code. So when my name comes up on the phone, it says St. Louis, and people say, I don't know anybody from St. Louis. Why should I answer the phone? If you can be in an office where it has the foundation name on the phone, that makes it much more likely that people will pick up the phone. Gen X will answer the phone, but usually only when they're at work. Do I have Gen Xers in here who will confirm that? They answer the phone at work because they have to, because they're at work. Otherwise, they're not going to answer a phone call at night if they don't recognize your number. So if you have a work phone for a Gen Xer, they'll probably answer the phone. So, but before you get to the point of making the phone call, you have to prep yourself first. So I want you to think about what you want out of the phone call. Do you want an appointment? Do you want information? Do you want to follow up on something that you've already promised them? Did you send them something that you hope to visit about? So you've got to get in your mind, all right, if they answer the phone, this is what I want to talk about. But if they don't answer the phone, and if you get a voicemail or an answering machine, then know what you're going to say there. And actually, you might be better off if you get an answering machine or a voicemail first, because then you can structure the call and you don't have to worry about what the other person is saying back to you. So, I mean, really, it works. So think about the message that you're going to leave. And I think there are two important things to say. First, do not ask them to call you back, because they won't. So tell them that you will try them again. Usually in my world, I'll try 3 times on the phone before I'll follow up with an email. But I'll often say, gosh, it's early. I probably shouldn't have called you this early. This is Judi Smith. I'm calling for whatever organization I'm calling for. I'll try you later on in the day. Well, if I don't get them later on in the day, I'll say, hey, this is Judi Smith. I missed you this morning. I missed you this afternoon. I might try to call tomorrow. And I'll try to pick a different time. Well, if I don't get them on the third time, either one, they don't want to talk to me, or they really are busy people. So at that point, I'll leave a message that says, you know, I've had no luck connecting with you on the phone. I'm going to shoot you an email. And then in the email, I can put in basically what I wanted to talk with them about to begin with. I can even send links to the website if I need to. And, you know, I can structure it almost like a proposal. But again, I don't ask them to call me. And I'll put somewhere in the email, you know, I had no luck reaching you this week. Maybe you're out of town. I'll give you a chance to read this, and I'll try to call you next week. So think about the phone call as an opportunity to make your case, but you're still not doing it in person. Oh, yeah, but let's say that you're hoping that you're really going to talk to the person. Then these are some things that I want you to do before you pick up the phone the first time. First of all, there's a woman called Mallory Erickson. I stole this from her. I completely admit it. She has a podcast called What the Fundraising. It's a good podcast. Try it sometime. And she has all these scientific, psychological reasons for, you know, why people have trouble with fundraising. And she says that the first thing you do is, if you're nervous about making a phone call or you're nervous about doing a visit, is you say to yourself, it makes sense that I'm nervous. And given the word cloud we built, I think you're going to say that. It makes sense that I'm nervous. And then you use your own first name and you say, you can do this, Judi, or whatever your first name is. Don't say Judi. Use your first name. And in her theory, and she makes a lot of money as a speaker and a podcaster, it works. Now, my theory, the one that I do, that I stole from Jerry Panis, who you'll meet at the very end of this. Jerry Panis died about 2 years ago. But before that, he wrote a couple of books, one of them called Asking, and another one called Mega Gifts. And this is something that Jerry Panis said, and it works for me, so do whatever you want. First of all, he says to stand up. And there's something about the blood flow to the head when you stand up. The next thing you do when you're standing there is smile, because you can actually hear in your voice if you are smiling. And you've taken that deep breath, and you're standing, and you're smiling, and then you dial, or you hit the little number on your phone, whatever. And you stay standing. It's perfectly okay to walk around while you're talking, but it does make a difference, because if you're sitting at your desk, you might be slumped over, you know, you might have your hand on the computer or the notes. If you are standing and smiling, you are just focusing on that phone call. So whether you take Mallory Erickson's technique or the one I stole from Jerry Panis, try it and see what works for you, or try them all. You know, just do whatever works. But these are some tips and techniques that should work for you. Okay, but let's say you're not talking to them on the phone and you have to send an email. Now, we all send emails every day, and we don't think very much about how they look, because we just type, and, you know, maybe you get one of those little blue bars that says, oh, you need to put a comma here, or maybe you get a red underline that says this word is misspelled. And if you're just emailing a normal person, you probably don't pay any attention. You also probably don't think about paragraphs. So if you're emailing somebody about a gift, you really do want to think about the look. So keep your paragraphs short. Keep your sentences short. It's okay to put a link in there that links to your website. You want to be like you're having a conversation, but like you're having a very business conversation. You definitely want to say you as opposed to, the company or third party thing. And if you're comfortable calling the donor by first name, use the first name, but it's perfectly okay to say Mrs. Jones if you're not comfortable. So figure out what puts you in your comfort zone, what you think the donor will put the donor in their comfort zone, and make sure that your email looks professional, because sometimes that's the only contact you're going to have to get that gift. So consider that. The other thing that you have to address in your email, there's ice, the elephant in the room. The donor's ice wondering, why me? Why are they contacting me about this? So try to hit that up front. We spoke about your ecology class project, and this is something that I think might add to that project. And remind them of how their support for this project is going to enhance the community or build the greater good. But even though your donor may have given you permission to have this conversation, they still have in the back of their mind this why me? Why are they talking to me about this? So you have to address that. And then remind them over and over of the good, the impact that their support can have. Will it send 2 kids to summer camp? Will it feed 10 families over the weekend? Whatever your project is, try to get that impact in there and make the type big enough so they can read it. None of this tiny 8-point type stuff. Okay, you also have to think in your email, how much is enough? You don't want to send them so much stuff that they'll look at it and think, well, I'll read this later. You want them to read it now. So send them enough, and one of the things to do is if you can link to additional information, if they're interested in that additional information, they can click on it, but you've got the essence of what you're asking them in your email. And I've found that somebody who has been helped by the project, just a little sentence and a picture, if you can use one, and of course you have to be careful if it's kids, you have to have parents' permission if you show the face. But if you have a mother who could make a testimonial that, because of your backpack project, her kids were able to eat all weekend while she's spending her time looking for a job, that can make a real impact. So if you've got a little testimonial you can put in there, that's always a great thing to add to your written emails. You also have to think about your donor. Hopefully, if you're approaching a donor about a specific project, you have enough sense to know why they're being solicited for this and what their approaches are. But, everybody has different motivators. There's a wonderful book called The 7 Faces of Philanthropy. It's old. I think it came out last century. But it divides donors into 7 different categories. And if I try to say all 7 of them, I always forget one, but let me try. One of them is a communitarian. And I suspect you have lots of communitarians in your area. People who will just give because it's important for their county or their school or whatever the project is. So communitarians are actually the largest group of motivators. You have the repayers. You have people who have been helped in some way in the past by your organization or by a similar scholarship. Universities and schools use this all the time. That's where scholarships come from. So many people went to school on a scholarship and wouldn't have been able to go otherwise. So is this someone who is a repayer? It also works well in the medical field. Is there someone who's been helped because they did research, in a certain disease? They're the altruist, and these are the people who want no recognition. So if you know that you're dealing with an altruist, someone who doesn't want their name out there, doesn't want anybody to know they gave, who always wants to be anonymous, then you want to recognize that. They're the devout, the people who just give because your project reinforces their sense. Either it's a project involving religion, or it's a project that basically says, this is something that God would want me to do. So you have the devout. You have the investors. These are the ones I don't like to talk to because the investors want numbers. What's the ROI on your project? If you get 6 people to do this, what's the impact in your community? So investors want numbers. And that's only 5, and I can't remember the other 2 right now, but it's a great book, and so you can go look up The 7 Faces of Philanthropy. But there are people who want you to recognize the fact that they're an expert in the field. There are people who are innovators, who want to help you do something just because it's brand new. So try to think about what their hot button is, what makes them tick, and put that, into your communication so that you're thinking about them, not just about you. I think we already talked about the look. Oh yeah, the other thing about email is it's hard to create a deadline because, let's face it, if we're talking about wills, there is no deadline. So you have to create some kind of urgency. If it's a scholarship, maybe it's for summer camp. If you don't have their commitment by April, you will not be able to name someone to go to summer camp in June. So try to think about urgency. Maybe it's just as simply as, we would love to invite all of our donors for this event to the opening on December 6th and hope that you'll be there as one of the donors we can recognize. Maybe it's listing their name with the project in the annual report. So try to think about what it is that you can create some artificial urgency so that you can get a response, because getting that response is challenging. You can send out this beautiful email that you've had permission to send, and it's crickets. So you have to try to create a reason. And then again, don't ask them to contact you, indicate that you will follow up and give them, a time frame, maybe next week or soon, because you've created that deadline. Now, this is the fun one, and this is the one that I love to do because it's so much fun to talk to people about making a gift and helping them actually create something that will make a huge impact for the future. This is also the scariest one for most of you. So we're kind of going to go through the way you would set up a visit and put you in at least a strategy zone so you have some techniques if you get to the point of making one of the very best calls, which is an in-person fundraising visit. Now, the wisdom says that you should always try to have 2 people on your call. It doesn't always work that way. Maybe you're the only staff member. I think you told me you were the only staff member. You might get a board member to go with you, but you might just be making the call by yourself, and that's okay. What's important is don't take 6 people to the call. You don't want them ganged up on. So it's either 1 or 2 people. If it's 2 people, the 2 of you who are going need to talk ahead of time and you need to be really honest with each other. If someone were going on a call with me and they were being honest, they would say, Judi, you talk too much. And you need to let the donor talk more. So I'm going to give you a signal if I think you've talked too much and it's time to either turn it over to me or the donor. And it might be something simple, just like, brushing your hair out of your face. You don't want to make it too obvious, like, but you have to have some kind of signal so that, if you are talking too much, you can't count on being able to kick somebody under the table because you don't know where you're going to sit. You might be beside each other on a couch. So have some kind of signal. The other thing is, in advance, if you can decide who's going to make the ask, that always helps. And especially if you're with a volunteer, you can immediately put the volunteer in their comfort zone if you let them know, I want you there to help me listen and engage the person and share your enthusiasm about the project, but I'll be the one who asks them to make the gift. That will take a load off their shoulders. The other thing is you must arrive together. It doesn't work if somebody gets there first. So even if you have to meet at McDonald's and then leave one car there, or if somebody has to sit in the driveway until the other person gets there, it's important to arrive together. Otherwise, the conversation's going to have started. The person who comes in second is left out. It just doesn't work. So you're figuring out with the person that you're going with who's going to do what. My friend Jerry Panis loves rehearsals. I hate them. Do what works for you. And the reason I don't like rehearsals is that you can theorize about what the other person is going to say, but you have no clue really what the other person is going to say. Probably the best thing you can practice is, what objections are we likely to hear? The objections are going to be, well, it costs too much money. Then we're going to talk about the impact of the dollars. Maybe the objection will be, well, isn't so-and-so doing that? There are too many food banks in this county. And, why should I give to your food bank instead of that food bank? So I think it's perfectly fine to prepare what you're going to say for objections you think you might hear. But where you actually script it, Jerry Panis, and I love him to pieces, says that you practice it in front of a mirror. That would just probably break my mirror if I did that. So figure out your objections. If it helps you to stand in front of a mirror and do it, everybody has a different approach. That's fine. But just know that because someone as great as Jerry Panis says you have to rehearse, I really don't think you do. That's what works for me. I always like to take them something, and it doesn't need to be big. Here's a notebook over here. So if I were going to see somebody who missed this session this weekend, I might say, I am so sorry you weren't able to be with us last weekend. We had a great session. If you'd been here, you would have received this notebook. Here it is. Maybe it's the annual report that has just come off the press but hasn't been mailed yet. Maybe it's a new brochure that hasn't been mailed. It doesn't have to be anything big. It's just something that you're taking them because you're visiting with them. So take them something. If I don't have anything to take, now we have Trader Joe's. I don't know if you have Trader Joe's or not. It's just a little store, but they always have these cute little plants out in front. And so, I can go pick up a little plant for $3.99 and take it to somebody. So, just something little. It can be something out of your garden for that matter. But the thing that I had to learn the hard way is that everybody doesn't drink wine or like chocolate. So I know, isn't that weird? But don't take them food because you never know. They may be gluten-free. They may have all kinds of allergies. So food is not necessarily a good thing to take. But anything else, something small, if it's got your logo on it, even better. Okay, I always try to let the donor direct where we're going to meet. That doesn't always work, but I give them the option. And if I think that they've tried to steer us to a place that might not work, I ask questions to try to get them to change it. For example, a lot of people like to meet, if they have a country club or a golf club, they want to meet in their club. And that's great because they're comfortable there. But they also know everybody. So that's a problem because you're going to be trying to have a serious talk with them, and Joe's going to walk by and stop and talk to them because they think you're just having an informal conversation. So it's a challenging place. If you have to meet at their golf club or country club, try to get there early enough that you can either go at an off time or pick a place in the corner that looks like it's out of the traffic pattern. Same thing for a restaurant. And some restaurants are really noisy. So if you've been to a restaurant before and you know that it's a really noisy restaurant, you might mention that. There's a restaurant in Sedona that donors seem to love to go to. And I mean, the sound just bounces off the wall and you can't hear the person across the table. So when they suggest the Hudson, I say, oh, I was there last week and I wasn't able to hear the person across the table from me. Do you think we might go downstairs and maybe go to, I can't remember the name of the Mexican restaurant that's downstairs, but that's one of the places that I really try to steer them away from. But if they're insistent that they want to go to the Hudson, then I'll get there 30 minutes early and I'll flag down the hostess and say, hey, we need to be over in a quiet corner. Can you put us way over here? So do what works. Now, if they're in your office or their office, that's great. If they're in their office, they've probably said they don't want to be interrupted, which is good. Or you can, if it's your office, you can tell them you don't want to be interrupted. That's fine, but the best place is in their home, in their kitchen. The kitchen is the heart of the house. So if you're doing a home visit, it's great if you can sit in the kitchen because then you can ask, well, it'd be great if we had a table. But very often they want to sit in the living room. So if they want to sit in the living room or the den, for some reason, donors want to give you what they consider the best seat in the house, which is their seat. So you walk in and you look and you say, there's her drink. There's her phone. That looks like her bag. If I sit there, I'm taking her spot. So don't sit in their spot. And if I have to sit in the living room, I try to sit on the couch because especially if there's a couple in the visit, you have to be able to pivot to talk to both people in the couple. So the couch, plus it also gives you a place to put your stuff. So keep in mind that. But when you're going in, look for, if you don't know them very well, there will be clues in the house that you can talk about. Oh, I didn't know you liked to ski. I see you have pictures, on the wall. I didn't realize you were a baseball collector. How many baseball parks have you been to? I mean, if you can get them talking about something that they love, they're really more comfortable. And they're comfortable in their home anyway. But it's just another touch point and another connection. They're probably going to offer you, if you're at home, they're probably going to offer you food and drink. And this can get sticky because you might be the person who's gluten-free and they never heard of gluten-free. So you at least have to take it, you at least have to put it up to your mouth and lick it or pretend to eat it or something, even if you put it back down if you can't eat it. But you have, if they've done something. What I don't like them to do is if they haven't made coffee, for heaven's sakes, I don't want them to grind the beans, tell me about how they came from Mallorca, this is their favorite brewing system. No. water is fine. I don't need coffee. Well, I might need coffee, but I'm not going to tell them. So, I try to only have water, but sometimes, you just have to take that biscuit or whatever it is that they've made and deal with it. I also like to make sure that they don't have to be somewhere because there's nothing worse to be in the middle of your spiel. Oh, well, I have to pick my mother up at the doctor in 20 minutes. Or, the kids get out of school, it's time to, go run the carpool. So check up front to make sure that they don't have any pressing obligations. Now, on the flip side, don't you have any pressing obligations? I'll never forget the first time I made a call with the alumni director of a university who shall not be nameless. She had been trying to get this appointment for a long time. We got the appointment. It was in their home. It was 20 minutes or so out of the city. We were having a great conversation. We were in the living room. We moved to the kitchen. We were looking at the stuff on their walls. And all of a sudden, she looks at her watch and says, I'm supposed to be blah, blah, blah. And we were in the same car. And it's like, you've got to be kidding me. You did not make another appointment for this afternoon. You never know. Sometimes these appointments can go on all day, all afternoon. I hadn't thought to tell her, you don't do that. You've been trying to meet these people for 6 months. We've got an appointment. They've got us for the rest of the day if they want us. So don't you be the one who makes that mistake of not being able to keep the meeting on. Try to keep it so that you learn as much as possible about how they interact with your organization. And don't hesitate if they have a warty history, if there's been a problem in the past, let them get it out on the table. If somebody's telling you about a problem, they've decided that you're willing to listen and that you can maybe help. And it means also that they're willing to repair the relationship. So don't be afraid if they have a problem. The other thing about listening is, and again, I'm referring to my good friend who's no longer with us, Jerry Panish, who said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. So listening is really important. And there are all different kinds of ways you can get them to talk. People love to get advice. So you can say, we've been in business 25 years. You have a long history with our organization. Tell us what you know about the past and what you foresee for the future. Is there something that we're doing or not doing that you think we should do? There's an old adage that says, ask for advice and you get money. Ask for money and you get advice. So ask them for advice. It usually works. Also, that when it's actually time to get the ask, this is the hardest part. This is where the art and the science comes together. Because you've done all the stuff that we've talked about, you've taken them a gift, you and your co-partner are communicating, you've had to stop talking 2 or 3 times, you've listened to them, you have a feeling where you're going, and so now it's time to make the ask. Think about how you're going to structure it, and I've given you some possibilities here. Now that you know more about what we're doing, can you help us get this project off the ground with a leadership gift of whatever amount? Or, I've told you that it will take $10 million to, fully fund this project. Do you see a dollar amount in there or a dollar level at which you might be able to participate? You've got to get it out there on the table. And then, of course, the traditional wisdom is once you've asked, you don't say anything until they've responded. Let's talk about what if the response is, no. Oh, I skipped some sticky questions. Oh, yeah, I forgot about this. I should mention this. I get busy talking. This is one of my problems. I get busy talking, and I lose my place. Sometimes you have to ask them what I consider nosy questions, which is why some of you are uncomfortable. But if you're really going to help them, especially with a big gift, you're probably going to be diving into what are their assets, not just what are they interested in, but how are they going to make this gift. So I almost always preface that by saying something like, in order to really figure out what might work best for you, I'm probably going to ask you some nosy questions about stuff you own. And if I get too nosy, just stop me. And you know what? Nobody ever has. They let me ask my nosy questions. And I find out that they own 3 houses and they've got 6 grandkids and they own stock that they got from their grandmother, they own land here and there. And then once you find out those things, then you can help them structure their gift. But sometimes you do have to ask those nosy questions. And so again, it's like everything else. Get permission. Once you have permission to ask them those nosy questions, then you're okay. So try to you figure it out ahead of time, but what is it that's going to be the tipping point? Do they want to honor their mother, who was a teacher? Is there a favorite aunt who took them to the library every weekend and you're looking for a gift to the library? Is it their uncle who taught them how to fish, and this is a fishing project? So are they trying to honor or memorialize someone? Are they trying to create their own legacy? Maybe they want to set up a scholarship in their own name because they went to this camp or they went to this school. Maybe they're really somebody who wants to get something off the ground and make something new happen. So again, try to think about what it is. You have some great opportunities for matching funding. That can be a great motivator. And sometimes it's just as simple as, they don't want to pay taxes on it. If there's a way that they can give it to their local community instead of to the federal government, why on earth wouldn't they? So you can help them do that. Now, there are some big no-nos that you cannot do. Do not ask if you can record the session. That will make them all spooky and weird. So you do not want to do that. You also don't want to take notes. Now, you might want to write something down. If you've promised that you're going to do something and you make a note of it, that reinforces, this is important, I'm going to do that. If they say something that you think, oh man, that's a great testimonial, I want to use that for the next person I talk to about this project, then just say, I would really like what you said. Is it okay if I write that down and share that with some others? And then get it exactly right. Like they said, you can even read it back to them. And that's okay. If you are one of these people who needs to do a brain dump as soon as it's over, then, go around the corner, go to McDonald's, go to Starbucks, and get your notes down, but don't do it while you're there. If you've promised to get back to them with some more information, which is perfectly fine, then make sure that you get that commitment. Don't encourage them to make a decision today, because if you push them to a decision, you probably won't get what you want. You'll either get a no or you'll get less money than you really wanted to ask for. And try to be, if they've told you that they can give you an hour, especially if you're in a business office and they've said they can give you an hour, then try not to overstay that time unless they specifically invite you. And you already know already that you're not going to set yourself up by having another appointment you have to go to. Okay, so sometimes you're going to hear no. And for some people, a no is devastating. don't let it kill you. There are all kinds of no's. There is well, no, not right now. We're getting ready to go to Europe, or we have our daughter getting married, or, I'm still paying my son's medical bills, or we've got 3 kids in college. That's a not right now, no. But that doesn't mean they're not interested. It just means this is not the right time for them to do that. Maybe you've picked a project to ask them about that they're not really interested in. They're interested in nature, and so you went to talk to them, this project about saving this wild river, but they're afraid of water. Who knew? It happens. So you've had a good visit with them. You've learned what they are interested in. You have a way to come back to them with something else, but this isn't the right project. Sometimes you'll get a no, not until. I had a university president. I worked for 4 different university presidents over my time. And I had this one university president who could not remember people's names. I used to literally stand at the door with him when we had an important meeting, and I would say, that's Mrs. Jones, that's Mrs. Bessie, that's Fred McIntyre, you met him 2 weeks ago. He literally could not remember people's names. He was a scientist, and he was, up here in the atmosphere somewhere, but he was not grounded on Earth. So I've had people tell me, until Dr. Kaiser can remember who I am, I'm not giving another penny to that school. Well, we might be talking to you when we get a new president. It just happens, And some of them were just expressing their frustration that every time he met them, they just wanted to be heard. That wasn't really what happened. I had another not until situation with, I worked on a performing arts center capital campaign, and there had been 2 failed attempts before then to get a performing arts center, and some people had given money, not to our organization, but they had given money, and there was no performing arts center. So I had one donor who said to me, I'm very interested in a performing arts center, but I've given money twice. I will make this pledge contingent upon seeing something actually coming out of the ground. When you've got a foundation poured and a building is going up, I will pay this amount of money. We got our money because we actually did the building. But sometimes you get that, not until or not unless. And sometimes, you've just overshot the mark. You ask for the wrong amount. Hopefully you ask for too much, and you can come back and say, well, 100,000 didn't work, but 50,000 will get us halfway to our goal. So you can come back and ask for a smaller amount. And people are usually not offended if you ask for too much, but they might be offended if you ask for too little. So if you're asking for a specific amount, try to really figure out what is the right amount. And then finally, you're going to have some homework when it's over. And it's not just writing your contact report and your notes. It's, did you promise to connect them with somebody? Did you promise to get some information? Did they have to talk to their attorney or their son or their CPA? And they're going to get back to you in a week. So, you may need to schedule another appointment. And write a thank you note, for heaven's sakes. Now, I know some of you may have lousy handwriting or think you have lousy handwriting. There is something charming and almost antiquated about a handwritten thank you note that actually is delivered to a person's home via the U.S. Post Office. If you can bring yourself to do that, it is a very important opportunity to stay connected to that donor. That said, maybe you're soliciting your next door neighbor and you see them every day. So maybe a handwritten thank you note would be inappropriate. But send some kind of thank you note, and that will give you an opportunity to recap. I was going to touch base with you after you had a chance to visit with your CPA, or I needed to check with our CEO about whether or not we can actually do this great idea that you suggested. So send that thank you note in whatever format works for you. And then finally, you've got to plan your next step, because like I said, you hardly ever get the gift on the first visit, especially if it's a big gift, and especially if you're just getting to know them. So figure out what your next step is, whether you have to bring in an expert, whether they have to bring in an expert, whether you have to deliver some more information, whatever their timetable is, but get that scheduled so you don't forget. And finally, remember that even though we have all these things about boomers react like this, and Gen X reacts like this, and millennial reacts like this, every person is different. So just because we can have some statistics for a generation, it doesn't mean that all these formulas you see, like you have to thank a donor 7 times before you get a gift, or it takes 3 years to get somebody to put you in their will, or a big one is, well, people can give 15 times their annual gift. So if they're giving $1,000, you should ask them for $15,000 in their will. I mean, most of that stuff is just craziness. And a lot of people will just tell you up front what they're going to do. So remember, it all depends on the donor.